Most of us NES owners played at least some racing games on the system back in the early 90s.
Hairpin turn, one mistake and you'll roll. Brad Racer, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
Most people easily recognize the names R.C Pro-Am and Super Off-Road. If you grew up in America, you could also toss in Indy Heat. These games had some similarities, but most importantly, playing these games today just reminds you how much you got cheated on. Let's take a look at each of these games and figure out what it takes to beat them. Some of these games got released on multiple systems, but we're just gonna look at the NES versions. If you never played these games and you're wondering how can it be so difficult to beat a few racing games, just cross the finish line before the AI drivers and profit, right? Not that easy. I had both of these games growing up, and at the end of the day, it became like a science experiment to me. You could say I was evaluating these titles when I was just 4 years old. Typically, racing games are all about mastering the driving mechanics, getting to know the tracks, and just overall skill that you acquire the more you play. However, there are some hidden logistics in all of these games that need to be discussed. I would say that these games in particular are more like puzzle games. You need to master certain things to win, and you also need to understand how the games were programmed. Let's fire up Super Off-Road first. Ah! Who the hell? Ivan Iron Man Stewart's Super Off-Road. That's a mouthful. Who the hell is Ivan anyway? After doing some research, he seems to be an off-road racing driver. Oh, really now? I used to think that since he's American, he's probably well known in his home country, but to my surprise, none of the people I talked to knew who he was. Looking at Wikipedia though, his racing record is pretty outstanding, so I can understand why a game was made sponsoring him. I suppose you just had to follow the off-road racing scene to know him. Get lost, pops. Time to go deep into the code of this game. This game was one of the few on the NES that supported 4 players. Most I ever played with was 3, and even then the others didn't really like the game because I kept lapping everyone. It really is one of those games where everyone should have the same skill level for everybody to enjoy it. I also hooked up the multi-tap just so I can say that I've played as the grey car. Ooh boy, check out the knockers. That's the distinct 80s style, just asking for a paper back over the head. Whew. Thank God for 4-letter names. Most games only had 3 spaces, and I don't know a lot of 3-letter names aside from Tom, which is probably the shortened version of Tomity. Why is my name on quotes? Ah! Jesus. Alright, I pay whatever you ask. Just fucking stop this. Now, compare this music to the SNES version. Holy fuck! The music is pretty unique throughout the whole game, and it doesn't sound like any other NES game I've ever heard. Some of the songs are just horrible, but there are some gems, especially on the later tracks. Most of the time it just sounds like some redneck hillbilly bullshit. Now you also get to choose a country to represent. The only difference it makes is that it plays the national anthem of that country after a race if you win. So the first section of the game is called the qualifying races, where it's a lot easier to get by. On the second half you really have to come in first every time or you'll lose your lives and game over. Just treat the game in a way where you need to finish first every time, it's a much easier of a concept. Later on there is not much room to fuck up. At the top of the screen it tells you the lap amount and your nitros. The AI always has 25 boosts when a race starts, and I don't think I've ever seen them use all of them. But they don't need to. More about this later on. The game starts innocent enough, and the first couple of races are pretty easy. However, if you have no idea what you're doing and you buy the wrong parts, prepare to get shafted. What comes to the different cars, well, they're all being driven by Ivan. The purple Ivan, the grey Ivan, and the green Ivan. Fucking sell out much? Couldn't you at least have some made up racers if licensing was an issue? With 3 Ivans. What are you doing? Anyway, the green car is the handicapped one. If you lose to this guy, you're probably playing with your toes. It's the feel-good opponent, the one who will always be last so you don't feel bad. The purple car is usually second, and his sole purpose is to prevent you from keeping up to the grey car. He's usually as fast as you and follows you so closely you get stuck and the grey car gets ahead. The grey car is basically the real Ivan. He's just the best overall. And when I say best, I mean a rotten fucking cheater. This is the aspect most people remember about this game. These AI cars cheat. And they cheat a lot. All the fucking time. However, we're here to figure out how that works and if there is something we can do about that. First things first, the power-ups you can buy with your placement money and the money you collect from the races, they are important. Note, however, that the shop is a bit of a scam. All of the updates seem to have 6 update levels, but I can tell you with pretty good odds that all of them max out at around 3 notches. For example, the top speed updates do nothing after you have collected 3 of them. You should reach this update by the 4th race, otherwise you've got no chance. The most important updates are the tires and the top speed. After that, it really doesn't matter. Shocks I never understood, it doesn't seem to affect anything, but then maybe it does. The car is supposed to bounce less and you should be able to take corners more easily, but I really haven't seen any of that. What you should do is update each of these 3 notches, maybe skipping shocks, and get 99 nitro boosts. When you've got 99, then feel free to update the rest of the parts to cure your OCD. I really don't think it makes a difference. For example, your truck is as fast with 3 notches of top speed as it is with 6. What a fucking ripoff. So you should really alternate between top speed and tires until you've got 3 of both. Then 3 for acceleration and 3 for shocks, then all of the boosts. You can also counter acceleration by using 1 boost at the beginning of the race if you can't afford the upgrade. There is a reason why we need to max out the nitros as fast as we can. You're not going to win the later races with 6 notches in shocks, but you will win with 99 boosts. Now, if you think you've already lost a race, don't bother trying to catch up, wasting boosts, but rather save them up and admit to your loss. I knew this strategy when I was around 5 because I played the game to death. I remember telling all of this to my friend who borrowed the game from me, and he didn't even care about any of it. He just ended up losing early on and gave up. Wait a second. The shop is owned by Iron Man? No wonder the updates stop working if you buy the parts from our opponent's shop. Super Off-Road doesn't follow a typical racing game AI procedure like most other games. Some games do what is called a rubber band AI, where if you're left behind, the AI will slow down, making it much easier for you to catch up, but if you overtake them, they will speed up and most of the time go faster than you ever could. This was prominent in the early Need for Speed titles, where the AI would usually grab the victory on the final corner of the track. The rubber band AI is a flawed system that should never be used in racing games. It negates the whole idea of racing, and to me, it makes no sense. Midnight Club 2, which I also have played through in this channel, doesn't do that. If you're slow, you'll lose. If you're fast and you know the ins and outs of the city, you'll win. That's how it's supposed to be. Don't modify the AI based on your performance. That's artificial difficulty. Wacky Wheels on DOS used a pre-recorded path for the AI drivers where they would always follow the same racing line throughout each track, never changing up. This was also a horrible system. Most of the early racing games were hard to code for such simple systems in a way where they would feel alive and exciting. They were still good games, but you could see through the cracks of the code. Super Off-Road, however, has its own system. It's not the rubber band system, but rather the AI drivers do have their racing lines, however it's not that simple. The game is based on triggers and events. Watch what happens when I cross the finish line and I'm first, completing the lap. The other drivers immediately speed up until they reach the finish line. Sometimes the triggers are based on positions on the track. For example, when the grey car goes through this section, it gets a boost until it reaches the next point, marked here. Sometimes the AI drivers will use invisible boosts at the same time you use yours. Look what happens when I use a boost here. See that? They immediately respond to it with increased speed, effectively making the use of my nitros ineffective. So I just wasted my precious dollars on one boost because the AI cheats. Thanks a lot, you redneck dipshits. The different tracks appear as follows. First you race the first track, then the second, then you race the first one again, then the second, then a new one, the third, then go back to the first, second, third, fourth. And every full pass of tracks there is going to be a new track. You'll also race the tracks in reverse. After track 42, you've done them all, but the game is endless, so you could just keep playing forever or as long as you keep buying boosts. As a kid, I liked how the flagman always had a random colored shirt for each race. I used to think that was the car he was rooting for. Now let's take a look at the other oddities that the AI drivers possess. But first, here's a tip. If you know you're going to win and you're far ahead, it's a good idea to stop before the finish line and wait for random pickups. Sometimes they will spawn near you, so you can just turn and still get them. I'd also advise not using your boost if you know you're gonna win anyway. It's just a waste of money. The track Wipeout has probably the best showcase of the erratic AI in place. Let's look at this scenario. We're following the grey car, and whenever he hits this point on the track, he starts going pretty much 4 times his original speed, and when he reaches the finish line, he'll revert back to the normal speed. He hits the spot again and away he goes. The purple car does the same, but he's much slower and only does it sometimes. Green car never gets the speed boost based on location. If you're first and you go through the finish line for your next lap, the others get a speed boost in that instance too, but the green car only gets small bursts. Use a boost and they will also get a speed boost for free. This track showcases pretty much most of the AI traits. Location and length based cheating, boost trigger cheating and crossing the finish line catch up. In order to counter the others getting a free speed boost when you boost, you should use it in predetermined spots. Spots where their speed boost ends up with them getting stuck on walls or crashing into walls. You should also use it on top of bumps and ramps to boost jump yourself over the others. This is the only counter you have when this system is triggered. What is strange to me is that in my mind, the rocks should slow you down, but I've never seen them do that. They just make you jump a bit and you can still make turns quite easily. Just don't waste your time trying to avoid the bumps and other small rocks. I love how the manual says that if you crash into other cars or walls, your car gets destroyed. This never happens in the game, but I might have a reason why the text is still in the manual. This actually happens in Indy Heat and it was made by the same developer. If I had to guess, they took it out of this game because of its nature. It's too easy to crash into everything and the other cars are constantly hugging you, so it would have been way too difficult. In Sidewinder, if you pay attention to the grey and purple cars, it's evident where the triggers are. It's from the finish line up to this point, so most of the track. Sidewinder is probably the hardest one in the game for this reason. You really just need to boost your way through it. If you hit the finish line first, the trigger activates immediately. On some tracks the trigger only activates when they touch the line, not you. Here's Big Dukes. You pretty much boost your way with the grey car, trying to keep the purple one off your ass and stop using boost right next to the finish line. So learning all of the track triggers, the locations, the catch up and everything else that has to do with their AI script is crucial if you want to win all of the races. And no, you can't make any shortcuts, I've tried. Like in the track Blaster, you'd think you could do multiple shortcuts and scam your way through, but they made sure you had no way to cheat by adding lap checks in all of the track's curves. The hell is the grey car doing now? We used to call them angry when they did that when we played this game as kids. That's what it looks like, he looks angry as fuck. They're bouncing up and down in their car before the race, and that to me always gave the idea that they're going to be super fast. I don't really know if it means anything or if they're faster or not, and what causes it. It's probably just a placement glitch as they are touching the ramp, maybe the cars get trapped on them the wrong way at the start. On these later stages, there's also water, but it doesn't really do anything, it's just there for decoration. On Cliffhanger, you can actually push the AI cars to make a shortcut and they'll be a lap behind if that happens. Sometimes the purple car does this on its own too. It's really easy to see the trigger points in this track as well. On the last track, the Hurricane Gulch, you'll get a choice on the left side, but no matter what you try to do, the small cavity usually just sucks you in and it takes a while to notch yourself free. Such a pain. Look at this, it's just insane. You'll be boosting through the whole track sometimes just to win. One mistake and you're toast. One boost at the wrong spot, you're done. If you did collect 99 boosts and you've taken notes of all the things... If you did collect 99 boosts and you've taken notes of all of the things in this video, you have a good chance to finally beat the game. And when I say beat, I mean make it to race 44. This is what happens if you fail to buy the right parts. You'll just outright lose. The AI doesn't give any mercy in that front. They will update top speed as soon as they can. Not even a cheat with full boost can do you much at this point. You're done. Fandango, the first track, really doesn't seem to have any triggers at all. The AI just travels normally through the track and it's nearly impossible to lose here. I just noticed that in Big Dukes it says the developer Leland on top of this oil sign. I never could read that as a kid, it's impossible to make that out on a CRT television. I always wondered what that was on top of that text. I also thought this ramp thing was a cardboard box. Then again, I also saw an ugly smiley face on the tire in the shop. Guess I really need to see the fucking shrink. That is Super Off-Road in a nutshell. The AI is a rotten cheater and the only way to win is to learn every single race. Like I said, it's more like a puzzle game, not a racing game. Well, what did all of this teach us? That Iron Man Stewart probably took some steroids or something to win back in the day. What an awful fellow. A racing game should be fair from the start and it should rank higher in difficulty as the game goes on, but this title just spits in your eyes and forces you to learn how to counter dirty code. They didn't stop here though. Introducing R.C Pro-Am, probably the most well-known racing game after Rat Racer, which really wasn't much of a racing game, but a thriving game against a timer. There was also a sequel where you can't see where you're going. Seriously, what the fuck? Why are you so close to the edge? Let's forget that even exists.
R.C Pro-Am 2 is actually good.
Ah, the intro tune to R.C Pro-Am. Such a classic. Enjoy that, because that's the only real music bit in this game, apart from some assorted 3-second jingles. There's a bit of a problem with the sounds in the game, but we'll talk about that when we cross that bridge. Oh shit, Rare! They made games like Battletoads, Solar Jetman and Snake Rattle and Roll. All of those were ridiculously difficult games. This is not good. This time our handicapped car is the one in the... green. Are the developers racist against green cars or what the fuck's going on here? It's not even the same developer. Super Off-Road was made by Leland. The blue car is better now than in Super Off-Road, but he's still the one trying to stop you from beating the best opponent, the one in orange. Don't get me wrong though, blue puts up a hell of a fight as well. This time you don't buy the updates, but rather drive over them on the actual tracks. They also give you a boost when you do so. I'd urge to get all of these updates, but as soon as you update your car, so does your opponent. It just seems they update their vehicles at the exact same rate as you. So this means updating your car also updates your enemies. What kind of sense does that make? In fact, upon collecting all the letters from the tracks spelling Nintendo, you update your whole car, but guess what? All of the opponents get the same car. What the fuck? I guess it's some sort of a trigger in the code to update all cars at the same time to make it easy to code, but it just completely fucked up the update system. What incentive would I have to update my car if the enemies end up upgrading theirs at the same time? Well, it's not like you can easily avoid upgrading your car, you just end up upgrading it accidentally most of the time because of how the upgrades are placed in the track. It's not like they're hard to get. Apart from parts and ladders, you'll also encounter puddles which slow you down, oil which makes you go out of control and possibly crash, bombs and rockets as ammunition, skulls that take your ammo away, boost pads that give you hell of a speed burst, roll cages which make you immune and able to crash others, and rising walls which is the stupidest obstacle in the entire game. Seriously, what the fuck is this? These hazards aren't placed randomly and they're usually right in your way, so after the first lap you better memorize them and make alterations to your racing line as you see fit. It's not a huge problem as the AI doesn't do too well either when they're placed like fuck all. In this game, as opposed to Super Off-Road, it's enough for you to come third, but if you're last, you're out. You collect trophies as you go on and you fill your shelf with them, and to be honest, it's kind of addictive and seeing your progress in this visual way is very satisfying. Did anyone else ever think this trophy looked like a rabbit with a pirate hat? No? Those are the basics, you'll get to understand all of this when you play in just a matter of minutes, but what you don't understand is why the fucking AI cheats again? Well, there's a simple answer, I just recently learned about it. They cheat because they can't use weapons. The more you shoot them, the more they cheat. The problem is, you need to start shooting them at some point because they'll become impossible to keep behind due to their racing speeds that exceed yours. In Super Off-Road, you need to save your boosts, but in this game you need to save your ammo. People always like to tell you that hey, don't pick up the bombs because you can only drop them behind you, go with the rockets as you can shoot forward with them. Yeah, nice tip you cum gargler, going 300 miles per hour as I'm going to see a bomb pick up before it's too late. You just can't avoid them for several laps in a row, it's impossible unless you're some kind of a robot. So most of the time you'll be carrying the bombs anyway, just try to make the best of it. The idea is to never use your ammo unless absolutely needed. The first time you shoot someone, they'll remember it for each race after and they'll morph into what I call supersonic mode. If you hear this whistling sound, you have about a second to react and shoot them. If you miss them twice, you just lost the race. It becomes your goal to micromanage each car in the later levels, because if you let them pass with that whistle sound, you'll never catch them again. So at some point, the only thing you'll be doing in the races is shooting the other cars as they catch up to you. One mistake, it's over. This style of gameplay can't be avoided, it's inevitable, but this is just how the game was built. Sometimes you have to stop and think, would I rather save my ammo and get a better placement on the next race, or should I just keep trying? Look at the orange go, holy fuck! If the orange dot on the map is this far away, you've fucked up your shot. What's nice about this game is that the AI can still make mistakes even if they're not on the screen. You'd think that they'd race perfectly outside of the screen state, but that's not the case, so you still have a small chance to catch up if you fall behind, but usually it's not in the books. Their whistle speed is just too fast. It's hard to judge if this game works on triggers, because you can't see the full track on the screen, but only the part where you are currently driving. The whistling effect makes me think there is some sort of a trigger for that, but I can't be sure. But something definitely sets it off, as the cars don't usually start with that ludicrous speed, but rather acquire that skill later on during the race. So in that sense, they are merciful, they let you get ahead just so you can at least have a chance to shoot them. On the very last races though, they don't give you that. You have to shoot them all, or most of the cars at the very start, otherwise you won't make it. I should have said something about the sounds already, but holy Jesus on a pogo stick, listen to this! My goodness, what in the... I would have much preferred music to this abomination, it's just horrible. But there's also something satisfying about hitting the speed boost too, but man does it become ear-screeching after a while. It would also probably be impossible to hear the whistle effect if there was music. No music, just to create a cheating AI. Wow. It's nice in a way that these pioneering racing games had challenge like this, but there had to be another way. In their core, these games are pretty poorly made and coded, but we don't hold them hostage because they still kept us glued to our televisions, trying our best to beat those cheating assholes. And that, at the end of the day, was just plain fun. So R.C Pro-Am, not much of a science project. Unlike Super Off-Road though, just max out your ammo and keep the others behind you and you've technically beaten it. Keep at least one car behind you and do that 48 times. This game also runs forever like Super Off-Road, but eventually you'll just run out of ammo. There is no way to stop the AI from cheating in either game, but with these tips it should be a lot easier to win. Why did the developers make the games this way? We'll probably never know, but there's one more game we can take a look at briefly. Danny Sullivan's Indy Heat, really? Again with the endorsement, Iron Board Stewart Super Off-Road, Danny Sullivan's Indy Heat, Michael Jordan's R.C Pro-Am. This game was made by the same company who made Super Off-Road, Leland. Hold on a minute, programmed by Rare? No, let's go back to Super Off-Road. What does that say? Oh my goodness, they're all coded by Rare! You sick bastards, it all makes sense now! Coded by the same company, but suddenly only 3 letters for a name. Oh, but on the plus side, you get to choose your head. Alright. Looks good. Ah! Danny's tip. Some people just can't get away with the aviator classes. He looks like one of the California raisins. Out of this house! Out of this house! Use pit stop when out of gas, or on fire. As a pro race car driver, maybe you should use the pit stop before you run out of gas. And if your car is up in fucking flames, you just ride it to the pit stop and hope you don't catch on fire? Nice one, Mr. Sullivan. I can see now where you get your title thing for racing well. Knock other cars off their checks? What the hell is your problem? Glad he didn't mention that you can fucking kill the pit crew by driving over them, leaving behind a chalk outline. What the fuck? Danny is driving the yellow car and sadly, the others don't matter at all. They'll just always be extremely slow and this could very well just be between you and Danny. I don't have enough experience on this game to tell you any absolute facts, but it seems to me that this suffers from the same problem as Super Off-Road, where some of the updates after a certain amount of notches don't actually do anything, so you'll just be wasting your money at some point. Remember the manual of Super Off-Road stating how you can crash your car? Well, it's built in for this game, small parts come off when you crash into the other cars or walls, and that in return causes you to hit the pit stop at an earlier time. You can also run out of gas, so when the pit flag comes up, just make sure to actually go to the pit stop, otherwise you'll be driving the next lap with 5 miles an hour speeds. There are some visible triggers on the tracks where Danny speeds up, but it's nothing like in the other games, it's barely noticeable. I'm pretty sure you can't damage your car by deliberately crashing into others, and it does look like they lose hit points for it, so I just usually try and crash into Danny when I can, so that he needs to use the pit stop earlier. This game doesn't suffer from any visible AI cheating, and as a return it makes the game pretty boring. The 3 other cars are never a problem and Danny just hangs out with you as you battle for first place. In a way, this game proves why the previous games were so much fun. Sure, the AI cheated, but it was a proven concept to make the games more interesting. This is more like a Sunday try with the old Danny Sullivan. No weapons, no boosts, just your early day simulation racer, where you burst out in flames all the fucking time. sometimes at the start of the race it can be a bit of a pain, as you'll immediately take maximum damage from the other cars and that's race over. It's pretty much the only time when you might come in last place. The updates are nice in the sense that you can again buy them in any order as you like, but I just recommend maxing the crew first, because you'll be using that anyway in each race, and speeding up that process is a huge time save. Along with the top speed and tires, you just can't go wrong. My biggest tip would be to not select Danny's choice in the shop, because he's always going to just buy a full pack of boost speeds and never anything else. Well, there you go. I seriously tested that like 15 times, and every single time he wasted all of my money on boost speeds instead of other parts. Hold on a second. Purse? That's very 2019 like, not very 80s. Purse. Track racers had purses full of coins? Also, I just realized, of course he's going to pick something bad. I'm literally asking help from my opponent. Motherfucker, how do you have $100,000 in a goddamn purse anyway? In the end, even the racing games back then were NES hard, and you really had to master the titles to beat them. I still recognize the music, the sound effects, the ear-raping speed boost, and I'm not begrudged at all that I had the opportunity to play them and learn them. Sometimes life isn't fair, sometimes games aren't fair, but there's always a way to overcome the challenges. I'm just joking, life is a taxing hellhole and we all suffer through it. But at least you now know how to kick Ivan's and Danny, Iron Man, Stewart's faces in. Thank you for watching another Nico Evaluates. Join us in Discord to talk about Mega Man, White Bread, and the neighbor's dog. Impact the show in my Patreon, or just throw a few bucks if you wanna buy me coffee. Check out our merch at teespring.com/store/Snupster and get my quotes on your shirt. Or if those don't interest you, you can always just leave a comment or just keep watching. I'll catch you on the next one.